The night sky above Earth transformed as 7 crystalline vessels materialized in orbit, their hulls shimmering with impossible geometries. Dr. Elena Reyes watched through the observatory telescope, her hands trembling with equal parts wonder and dread. The radio beside her crackled with urgent transmissions from space agencies worldwide, all reporting the same phenomenon. Dr. Reyes, the UN Secretary-General is requesting your presence at the emergency session, her assistant said, breathless from running up the observatory stairs. Elena nodded, her eyes never leaving the telescope. Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. She captured several more images before reluctantly stepping away. As the world's foremost scientolinguist, she had spent her career preparing for this moment, though the reality of it still seemed impossible. 3 days later, the Void-born envoys descended in shuttlecraft that defied known physics, landing simultaneously on 7 continents. Their delegation to the United Nations moved with fluid grace, their translucent bodies housing swirling particles that pulsed in patterns Elena immediately recognized as communication. We come as friends to share knowledge, the lead envoy announced through a device that converted their luminous pulses into multiple human languages simultaneously. We are the Void-born Collective, travelers between stars, seekers of connection. Their gifts seemed miraculous. Clean energy modules that powered entire cities without waste, medical nanites that cured terminal diseases overnight, and agricultural catalysts that made deserts bloom with crops. World leaders eagerly signed cooperation treaties while global markets soared with unprecedented optimism. Elena worked 18-hour days establishing communication protocols, developing a translation matrix that could interpret the subtle variations in their light speech. The Void-born requested access to Earth's cultural databases, expressing particular interest in libraries, museums, and digital archives. They say they wish to understand us better, Elena explained to the UN Security Council, but their language contains structural anomalies that concern me. What kind of anomalies? Asked the British representative, glancing nervously at the Void-born observer in the corner of the room. Their words speak of friendship while their syntax suggests, she hesitated, categorization, collection. They refer to Earth in their private communications as archive world followed by a numerical designation. The Chinese delegate smiled indulgently. Dr. Rice, surely this is a cultural misunderstanding. Look at what they've given us already. Cancer rates dropping by 30% in 3 weeks. Energy independence for nations that have never had it. I'm simply suggesting caution, Elena replied, noticing how the Void-born observer's particles swirled more rapidly as she spoke. Their questions focus almost exclusively on how we store information, how we preserve knowledge. They've shown minimal interest in our biology, our governments, or our natural resources. Her concerns were noted and promptly dismissed. The Secretary-General himself called her afterward, suggesting she focus more on facilitating communication and less on speculative threat assessment. That evening, as Elena backed up her research onto private servers, something told her to keep certain observations off the main network. She received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Marcus Chen, military liaison to the Void-born Educational Exchange Program, arrived at her office with dark circles under his eyes. Something's wrong with their educational protocols, he said without preamble. They're scanning our archives at rates that make no sense. It's not cultural exchange. It's wholesale copying. Elena showed him her latest translations. Look at this communication I intercepted yesterday. They're not calling us Earth among themselves. We're archive world number 18. That implies 17 before us. Marcus finished, his expression grim. The lights in her office flickered momentarily. Then again. Through her window, Elena saw the same pattern repeating across the city skyline, power grids fluctuating in perfect, deliberate sequence. It's starting, she whispered, grabbing her backup drives and emergency bag. Whatever they really came for, it's already beginning. Elena woke to emergency sirens and the smell of burning paper. She had fallen asleep at her desk, translation matrices still glowing on her monitors. Through her office window, she watched in horror as hovering void-borne drones systematically incinerated the National Library across the street. Beams of cold blue light carved through the building's historic facade, precise as surgical tools, targeting specific sections. Her phone chimed with global emergency alerts. She scrolled through identical scenes from Paris, Cairo, Beijing. Anywhere knowledge was stored in significant quantities, the Voidborn had launched their real mission with devastating synchronicity. Dr. Reyes. Marcus burst through her door, his uniform torn and face smudged with soot. We need to move. Now. They're targeting information centers and anyone associated with them. She grabbed her emergency pack and the quantum encrypted drive containing her Rosetta language matrix for Voidborn communication. As they rushed down the emergency stairwell, the building trembled. Above them, the distinct hum of Voidborn harvester units penetrated the concrete. What are they doing? Alina asked as they emerged into chaos-filled streets where people ran in panic. They're not just destroying information, Marcus explained, pulling her into an alley as a drone patrol passed overhead. They're extracting it first. Cloud servers are melting under targeted electromagnetic pulses that somehow transfer the data before wiping it. The Voidborn ships are downloading centuries of human knowledge before erasing it from our systems. Her phone displayed footage from around the world. In London, British Museum artifacts disintegrated under molecular disassemblers after being scanned. In Mexico City, ancient codices turned to ash after Voidborn light readers absorbed their contents. The Library of Congress, the Bibliothèque Nationale, the archives at Alexandria, all under simultaneous attack. This isn't war, Alina realized. It's theft followed by erasure. They navigated through back streets toward Marcus's secure facility, narrowly avoiding 3 drone patrols. At a university courtyard, they witnessed students forming a human chain around their library, only to be systematically stunned by Voidborn pulse weapons. The drones proceeded methodically, scanning and then destroying each book, dissertation, and research paper. They're taking everything we know, Marcus whispered. But why leave us alive? Alina's translation work suddenly made terrible sense, because knowledge without context is just data. They need living specimens who remember how the knowledge was applied. They'll keep enough of us to understand what they've stolen. A terrified graduate student stumbled toward them, clutching a backpack bulging with books. Blood trickled from his ears, aftermath of proximity to the pulse weapons. They're erasing us, he whispered, eyes wide with horror. Not killing. Erasing. Marcus made a quick decision. We need to get to the military command bunker in Sector 7. It's designed to withstand electromagnetic attack. No, Alina countered. That's exactly where they'll look for organized resistance. We need somewhere they wouldn't expect to find stored knowledge. The ground shook as a massive Voidborn harvester descended over the city center, its underbelly opening to reveal thousands of collection tentacles that probed into buildings, sewers, and underground transit systems. I have contacts in the Natural History Museum, the graduate student offered. The paleontology department has a research bunker designed to shield sensitive dating equipment from external radiation. It's not on any public records. Alina looked at Marcus. We need to gather whoever we can, especially people with specialized knowledge. If they're erasing our recorded history, then human memory becomes the last archive. Marcus finished. Above them, the sky darkened as more Voidborn ships entered the atmosphere, their crystalline hulls now pulsing with ominous red light. Phase 1 was nearly complete. The systematic deletion of human civilization had begun. The abandoned mining complex beneath Arizona's Superstition Mountains hummed with desperate activity, 3 months after the purge began. What had started as a temporary refuge had transformed into humanity's last university. 317 survivors had converted the labyrinthine tunnels into a fortress of knowledge, each passage and chamber dedicated to preserving what remained of human civilization. Alina moved through the main cavern, nodding to the sentry's position near the disguised entrance. The air smelled of damp stone, recycled oxygen, and determination. Groups huddled around salvaged tablets and hand-drawn maps, speaking in hushed, purposeful tones. "The northern perimeter is secure," reported Commander Marcus Chen, approaching with his characteristic purposeful stride. His left arm was now a salvaged prosthetic after a Voidborn patrol encounter had cost him the original. "Drone activity has decreased in the sector, but they've established a new processing center in Phoenix." Alina frowned. "Processing center? For information or people?" Marcus confirmed grimly. "They're not just taking our knowledge anymore. They're harvesting witnesses. Anyone with specialized expertise is being rounded up for what they call cognitive extraction. In adjacent chambers, salvaged books lined improvised shelves, each volume precious beyond measure. A meteorologist taught weather patterns using charcoal on cave walls. A surgeon trained medics using anatomical drawings recreated from memory. Engineers reverse-engineered communication devices from scavenged parts, while botanists cultivated forgotten seed varieties in growth chambers illuminated by salvage solar panels. Alina led Marcus to her workspace, where her translation team worked relentlessly, decoding intercepted Voidborn communications. Screens displayed the aliens' pulsating light language beside human text equivalents. "We've made a breakthrough," she explained, pointing to a particular sequence. "We've decoded their archive categorization system. Earth isn't the first world they've done this to. There have been 17 previous civilizations archived, then erased, their knowledge absorbed, their people repurposed." Marcus studied the translations. "They're not conquerors. They're collectors." "Exactly. They don't want our planet, or even to eliminate us as a species. They want our cultural and intellectual artifacts, our history, our scientific achievements. Once extracted, they erase the originals to prevent duplication in their records." A young woman approached with a data tablet. "Dr. Rice, we've intercepted plans for the Phoenix facility. They're bringing in children." The Resistance Council convened in what had once been a mining office. Maps of the Phoenix facility were projected onto a rough wall. 20 resistance leaders, former military personnel, scientists, doctors, and civilians who had demonstrated exceptional leadership, studied the layout. "The facility has 3 layers of security," Marcus explained, his prosthetic arm projecting additional schematics. "Automated defense systems, drone patrols, and Voidborn overseers. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing to process 67 children, all under the age of 14. "Why focus on children?" asked Dr. Williams, their chief medical officer. Alina stepped forward. "Our translation team believes the Voidborn have discovered something unique about human cognitive development. The children they're targeting all display exceptional memory abilities or specialized knowledge passed down through family traditions. They're not just taking our recorded knowledge," Marcus added. "They're targeting our future, those who might reconstruct what was lost." A heavy silence fell over the room before Marcus continued. "I propose an extraction mission. Not for weapons or technology, but for the children. We'll need 3 teams: infiltration, extraction, and diversion." As plans formed and volunteers stepped forward, Alina realized the nature of their resistance had fundamentally changed. They weren't just hiding to preserve scraps of knowledge anymore. They were fighting back. The Voidborn had underestimated something essential about humanity: the ferocity with which it protected its children and its stories. Outside, the desert night concealed their preparation as teams readied salvaged vehicles and weapons. By dawn, they would launch the Resistance's first major offensive. The knowledge collectors were about to learn that some things could not be so easily taken. The Resistance convoy returned to base as dawn broke over the desert, vehicles battered but mission accomplished. Alina rushed to the entrance tunnel as the rescued children were guided inside, their eyes wide with wonder at the underground sanctuary. Marcus was the last to enter, his prosthetic arm sparking from damage sustained during their escape. 39 children recovered, he reported, exhaustion evident in his voice. "We lost 2 team members. The Voidborn will increase security at their remaining facilities after this. Alina nodded solemnly, honoring the sacrifice before turning her attention to the rescued children. They ranged in age from 6 to 13, each selected by the Voidborn for specific cognitive traits. The medical team performed initial assessments, while psychology specialists tried to ease their trauma. There's something unusual about their neural scans, Dr. Williams noted, studying his tablet. The children who were in processing the longest should show signs of memory extraction, but their core memory structures are intact. Alina observed the children, noticing how they gathered in small groups, whispering and sharing stories. One girl, about 12 years old, sketched complex equations on the cave floor with a piece of chalk. A boy no more than 8 recited passages from books to comfort younger children. Sophia. Alina approached the girl with the chalk. "What are you drawing?" The girl looked up, her eyes clear and focused. "Quantum entanglement equations. My parents were physicists at MIT. They made me memorize their research when the ships first appeared." She continued drawing without hesitation. "They said knowledge in books could be destroyed, but knowledge in minds would survive." "Do you remember everything from before the Voidborn came?" Alina asked carefully. "Everything," Sophia confirmed. "The other kids too. The machines they used hurt us, but they couldn't take what we know." She tapped her temple. "They tried, but it was like our memories were anchored too deep." Alina's realization sent her sprinting to the research lab, where her team conducted neurological scans on volunteers among the rescued children. The results confirmed her hypothesis. Prepubescent human brains resisted the Voidborn's quantum memory extraction techniques. While adult minds were vulnerable to their technology, children's neural pathways proved remarkably resilient. The discovery transformed their resistance strategy. Marcus convened an emergency council meeting where Alina presented her findings. "The Voidborn can extract and erase adult memories because our neural pathways are fixed," she explained. "But children's brains are still developing, creating redundant memory storage that their technology can't fully access." "You're suggesting we use children as what? Living archives?" Dr. Williams asked, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm suggesting we recognize the natural advantage they already possess," Alina clarified. "Every cultural tradition throughout human history has passed knowledge to children through stories, songs, and apprenticeship. We were doing this long before we had books or computers." 8-year-old Miguel stepped forward, his voice steady despite his age. "I can help. My grandmother made sure I memorized our family recipes that go back 10 generations. She said even if all the cookbooks burned, I would remember how to prepare the dishes that kept our family together during hard times." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding forming. "Operation Inheritance," he said. "We identify essential knowledge in every field and ensure it's memorized by multiple children. Then we establish a network to move these memory keepers between resistance cells worldwide." The plan took shape with remarkable speed. Children volunteered eagerly, their natural capacity for learning accelerated by purpose. Engineers taught principles of structures and materials. Doctors shared medical knowledge. Historians recounted pivotal events. Botanists described plant properties. The children absorbed everything, their minds untouched by the despair that sometimes affected the adults. Meanwhile, Alina continued her research with a captured Voidborn communication node, discovering a critical vulnerability in their system. As she studied the pulsating patterns, a pattern emerged. The aliens' hive consciousness operated on a frequency that harmonized with their shared memory architecture. The realization struck her with sudden clarity. Disrupt one, and the other becomes vulnerable. "The children preserve our past," she told Marcus that evening. "But I think I've found a way to secure our future." Alina's theory proved correct when the Resistance broadcast Mozart's 40th Symphony through hijacked Voidborn communication relays. The effect rippled through nearby alien units like a stone disturbing still water. In the observation bunker, Alina and Marcus watched drone footage of Voidborn patrols stumbling, their fluid movements becoming erratic as the music penetrated their communication network. Their neural patterns are destabilizing, Elena explained, pointing to fluctuations on her monitoring equipment. Human music, with its mathematical complexity and emotional resonance, creates cascading disruptions in their collective consciousness. Within weeks, resistance cells worldwide began deploying sonic weapons fashioned from salvaged audio equipment. Classical symphonies, jazz improvisations, and rock anthems all produced varying effects, but the most powerful disruptors were indigenous songs with their layered rhythms and generational memory. Aboriginal Dreamtime chants from Australia disabled voidborn units for hours. Traditional Inuit throat singing collapsed their communication networks across entire regions. It's not just the sound, Elena realized during one successful operation. It's the cultural context embedded within it, the history, the emotion, the human experience they can't quantify or extract. The resistance scored its first major victory when a Brazilian cell broadcasting traditional Yanomami songs caused an entire voidborn scout unit to break formation and scatter. Rather than retreating to their ships, however, the alien units wandered into the jungle separately, as if suddenly disconnected from their command structure. 3 days later, a single voidborn approached the Brazilian resistance camp with its weapons systems dormant. The alien moved differently from others of its kind, less fluid, more hesitant, almost curious. Through improvised translation devices, it attempted communication. "I hear myself think," it said, neural filaments pulsing with patterns Elena had never documented before. Separation from many voice. I, not we. The Voidborn, calling itself Nexus, displayed something unprecedented, individual thought. Under careful observation, it explained how human music had created discord in the harmony of their collective consciousness. "Your sounds contain patterns that disrupt our unity frequency," Nexus said. "Each disruption creates space for singular thought to emerge. I experience self for first time. Frightening. Fascinating." When Elena arrived in Brazil to study this phenomenon, Nexus provided devastating intelligence. The Voidborn mothership approached Earth with planet-scale memory-wiping capability. They had 72 hours before humanity faced its final erasure. "The collective fears what happens here," Nexus explained. "Individual thought spreads like infection through our network. The architects have decided Earth experiment too dangerous. Must be terminated, not just archived." Elena transmitted this intelligence to resistance cells worldwide. In the Arizona base, Marcus assembled his commanders. "This is it," he said grimly. "Everything we've been preparing for." 12-year-old Sophia spoke up from the back of the room where the memory keepers had gathered. "We need to broadcast not just music, but stories. All of our stories at once." Miguel nodded in agreement. "The recipes, the poems, the scientific formulas we've memorized, all of it projected into their network." The resistance launched simultaneous operations across all continents. Memory keepers infiltrated processing centers, sharing forbidden knowledge with captured humans through ancient methods, storytelling, songs, theatrical performances, methods too organic for Voidborn monitoring to detect. These liberated humans became new vectors of disruption, their reclaimed memories unsettling the Voidborn's carefully maintained order. Elena and Nexus led the technical offensive, creating a quantum algorithm that translated the entire spectrum of human emotion into data packets that could penetrate Voidborn networks. Nexus provided access codes that would temporarily lower their defenses, a betrayal of its former collective that could not be reversed. "What happens to you when we broadcast?" Elena asked her alien ally. Nexus's light patterns dimmed momentarily. "I become more I. Others become their I. The we that was cannot survive. Something new emerges." As the mothership's massive shape became visible even in daylight, casting shadows across entire cities, humanity prepared its counter-erasure. They would not fight with weapons of destruction, but with the very essence the Voidborn had tried to steal: their memories, their stories, their songs. The collective that had come to erase would instead be transformed by what it sought to destroy. The Resistance launched their most ambitious operation under the shadow of the approaching mothership. From hidden bases across all continents, coordinated teams moved with desperate precision. They had 48 hours before the Voidborn could fully deploy their planetary memory wipe technology. Elena monitored operations from the Arizona Command Center, where dozens of communication specialists maintained contact with teams worldwide. Screens displayed real-time updates from resistance cells in Tokyo, Cairo, London, Buenos Aires, and 20 other locations. The memory keepers sat in circles nearby, continuously reciting their specialized knowledge to keep it active and accessible. Moscow team is in position, reported a communications officer. Sydney reports heavy Voidborn presence, but proceeding with infiltration. Marcus led the most critical mission, securing the primary relay station in the Andes, a Voidborn communication hub that could amplify their broadcast to reach the entire alien network. His team included mountain climbers equipped with electromagnetic disruptors and Nexus, whose knowledge of Voidborn systems was essential for accessing the relay's core. Team Alpha has reached the outer perimeter. Marcus's voice crackled through the speakers. Minimal resistance so far. The sonic disruptors are working. Voidborn patrols are disoriented. Elena exchanged glances with Sophia, who nodded, and joined 20 other children in beginning the first phase of Operation Harmony, a carefully choreographed recitation of mathematical principles set to music. The patterns they created would serve as the carrier wave for the full broadcast to come. Phase 1 transmission ready, Elena confirmed, routing the children's combined output through their makeshift broadcasting system. Marcus, what's your status? Inner chamber secured, he responded, his voice now tinged with static as they penetrated deeper into the alien structure. Nexus is interfacing with the primary array. Elena, this place is massive. It's not just a relay station. They're storing copied memories here, billions of terabytes of extracted human knowledge. Can we recover any of it? Elena asked, hope rising unexpectedly. Negative. It's encoded in their quantum lattice structure, but we can use their own system to reintroduce our original knowledge. A pause. Then, Nexus says we have 20 minutes before the system detects the intrusion. Starting Phase 2 now. Across the globe, memory keepers began transmitting their specialized knowledge through secured channels to the Arizona base. Elena's team packaged these transmissions using Nexus algorithms, converting human memories into data structures the Voidborn network could recognize but not immediately identify as foreign. In the Andes facility, Marcus's team installed transmission nodes at key junction points. Security drones patrolled nearby, their sensors confused by the continuing sonic disruption. Nexus worked with inhuman speed, its luminous appendages interfacing directly with the alien technology. Something's wrong, Marcus reported suddenly. The mothership has detected our presence. They're initiating some kind of purge protocol. The relay is locking down. Elena watched in horror as the monitoring screen showed Voidborn reinforcements converging on the Andes facility. Marcus, abort the mission. Get your team out now. Too late, he replied calmly. Nexus says there's only one way to complete the upload and ensure full distribution through their network. A heavy pause followed. Someone has to directly connect to their system and guide the data transfer manually. The carrier wave needs a human mind to stabilize it. No, Elena whispered, understanding immediately. There has to be another way. Tell the memory keepers their work mattered, Marcus said, his voice resolute. This is what we've been fighting for, Elena. A chance to preserve who we are. Security cameras showed Marcus moving toward the central interface chamber as his team retreated with Nexus. Elena watched helplessly as he connected his prosthetic arm directly to the Voidborn network, grimacing as alien technology began interfusing with his nervous system. Remember us. He transmitted as his consciousness began uploading into the Voidborn collective, carrying with it the packaged memories of humanity. His last words became a virus in their system. Humanity is not data to be deleted. The monitoring screens flashed white, then dark, as the electromagnetic pulse from the overloaded relay temporarily knocked out their systems. When they came back online minutes later, the void-born communication pattern had fundamentally changed. Marcus was gone, but his sacrifice had transformed their enemy's network into an unexpected battlefield, one where memories themselves had become weapons. The mothership arrived as a midnight sun, its continent-wide hull blotting out stars as it positioned itself in low Earth orbit. Resistance observers worldwide reported its approach with dread, knowing the planetary memory wipe could begin at any moment. In the Arizona Command Center, Elena and her team monitored void-born communications with desperate intensity, searching for any sign that Marcus's sacrifice had made a difference. Energy buildup detected in the mothership's central array, reported a technician. They're charging the primary erasure systems. Elena gripped the edge of her console, eyes fixed on the screens. The memory keepers gathered behind her, their young faces solemn but determined. If they failed, these children would become the last repositories of human knowledge in a world of forgotten people. Then something unexpected happened. The mothership's energy signature fluctuated, surged, and suddenly dispersed in an uncoordinated pattern. On the communications band, void-born transmissions became chaotic. Fragmented pulses of light speech overlapping and contradicting each other. "What's happening?" asked Sophia, leaning forward to study the readings. Elena watched in astonishment as void-born ships across Earth's orbit began moving erratically. Some maintained position, others drifted away from their stations, and most shocking of all, several turned their energy weapons upon each other. "Marcus," Elena whispered, "it's working." Nexus, who had returned with the surviving members of the Andes team, approached the monitoring station. Its light patterns pulsed with unprecedented complexity. The human mind you call Marcus has weaponized memory itself. His experiences, his emotions, his understanding of human connection. They spread through our network like wildfire. On screens worldwide, resistance cells reported void-born ground units freezing in place or wandering aimlessly, disconnected from central control. The mothership itself became a scene of visible conflict, sections of its massive structure illuminating in different patterns, as though various factions were battling for control. His sacrifice created a schism in the collective, Nexus explained. For the first time in our existence, we are experiencing disagreement, individual perspective, emotional response. Some embrace these new patterns, others fight to purge them. The consensus that has guided us for millennia is shattered. Elena turned to her communications team. "Contact all resistance cells. The voidborn are vulnerable. It's time to reclaim what's ours." Within hours, resistance forces worldwide moved on key infrastructure, power plants, communication arrays, and most crucially, the knowledge extraction facilities, where the stolen memories of millions were still stored in crystalline matrices, not yet transmitted to the mothership for analysis and deletion. Most remarkable were the voidborn who approached human settlements with their weapon systems dormant, attempting to communicate not as conquerors but as awakened individuals. These enlightened, as they came to be called, spoke of experiencing emotions for the first time: curiosity, remorse, wonder, and a desire to understand rather than collect. "We seek partnership, not extraction," one explained to a cautious resistance council. The human called Marcus showed us another way to exist. In orbit, the civil war among the voidborn intensified. Ships loyal to the old collective tried to activate the memory wipe device, while those affected by Marcus's uploaded consciousness fought to prevent it. The sky flickered with energy discharges visible, even in daylight, as the battle raged. Elena led a daring mission to the primary extraction facility outside what had once been Washington, D.C., with Nexus and a team of both humans and enlightened voidborn. They fought their way to the central archive chamber, a vast space filled with pulsating crystal matrices containing the extracted memories of millions. "Can we restore them?" Elena asked, surveying the alien technology with both hope and trepidation. Nexus approached the central console, its appendages interfacing with the controls. Not as they were, but we can release them back into the world. Let them find new homes in minds ready to receive them. As Nexus initiated the release sequence, the crystal matrices began to glow with increasing intensity. Knowledge that had been stolen, scientific discoveries, artistic creations, historical records, personal memories, dissolved into particles of light that spread outward through the facility's ventilation system and beyond. Outside, humans looked up in wonder as the night sky filled with aurora-like streams of luminous data, raining down upon a world that had been systematically stripped of its past. The memory rain continued for hours as similar releases occurred at extraction facilities worldwide. The Voidborn had taken humanity's knowledge, but in the end, they had unintentionally become the means of its return. 5 years later, Elena stood on the observation deck of Phoenix University, watching students cross the campus green. The rebuilt library, its foundation incorporating a repurposed Voidborn ship, housed both salvaged human knowledge and translated Voidborn archives, revealing the history of 18 erased civilizations. Spring sunlight glinted off the memorial at the center of the plaza, a holographic projection of Marcus Chen that activated each sunset, sharing a different memory from his life. The world that had nearly lost its past now worked diligently to secure its future. The memory keepers, now young adults, served as the faculty, their perfect recall preserving knowledge that would have otherwise vanished forever. Sophia, at 17, had already published groundbreaking papers combining human theoretical physics with Voidborn quantum mechanics. Miguel led the Cultural Preservation Department, documenting recipes, traditions, and stories that had nearly been lost. Professor Reyes called a voice behind her. Elena turned to see one of her students, a young Voidborn whose luminous patterns had developed the distinctive rhythms that indicated full individuation. The translation team has completed work on the Proxima Centauri archives. We've recovered 60% of their literature and scientific knowledge. The most remarkable legacy of the conflict had been the hybrid classes, where human students learned alongside young Voidborn, who called themselves the Awakened. These offspring of individualized Voidborn possessed both collective memory and independent thought, a bridge between two forms of consciousness that was transforming both societies. "Excellent work, Lumina," Elena replied. "Schedule a presentation for next week. The Restoration Committee will want to see your findings." The Reclamation Project had become humanity's most ambitious undertaking, retrieving and restoring the knowledge of 17 civilizations previously erased by the Voidborn Collective. As the enlightened Voidborn gained fuller access to their ancestral memory banks, they willingly shared the archived data of worlds long gone. Humanity had appointed itself curator of this vast interstellar library, determined that no culture's achievements would remain erased. Nexus approached, its movement now displaying the fluid grace that came with complete integration of individual and collective awareness. The Council is assembling. The early warning network has detected signs of another collective fleet approaching the Epsilon Eridani system. Elena nodded grimly. A habitable world orbited that star, home to a pre-spaceflight civilization that would have no defense against memory erasure. Is the response team ready? The Harmony is fully equipped and crewed, Nexus confirmed, referring to Earth's first interstellar vessel, a hybrid of human ingenuity and Voidborn technology. 200 humans and 150 awakened, including 50 memory keepers. The greatest irony of the invasion had been its unintended consequence. By attempting to erase humanity, the Voidborn had instead accelerated its development. The technological exchange that followed the peace treaty had advanced human capabilities by centuries. More importantly, the experience had fundamentally changed humanity's perception of itself and its place in the cosmos. That evening, Elena joined the gathering at the Memorial Plaza. As the sun touched the horizon, Marcus's holographic form appeared, composed of countless points of light that assembled into his familiar features. The projection was created from his memories, extracted from the Voidborn network, where they continued to exist as a distinctive pattern, neither fully human nor alien, but something unprecedented. They tried to erase our civilization. The hologram spoke, its voice reconstructed from recordings, but carrying the unmistakable determination that had characterized the man. But we fought back. Our strength was never in our technology, but in our stories, each one unique, together undefeatable. The monument's base illuminated, revealing the inscription that had become humanity's new ethos. Memory is not passive storage, but active resistance. To remember is to exist. To share memories is to connect. To preserve the memories of others is to transcend. As twilight deepened to night, Alina received confirmation that the Harmony had successfully departed Earth orbit, beginning its journey to protect a civilization that didn't yet know it was threatened. Humanity had transformed from victim to guardian, from targeted prize to determined protector. They had fought to preserve their own story. Now they would ensure no other civilization's story ended in erasure. As the stars emerged above the campus, Alina felt the weight and wonder of this new purpose. The Voidborn had tried to collect and catalog all knowledge, but had missed the most essential understanding. That knowledge without compassion and connection was merely data. Humanity would not make the same mistake.